Wow. Okay. I didn't realize it auto does the intro. That's actually really cool. We have a new intro. Shout out Silver Fox ETO. We're gonna link out his SoundCloud, his portfolio. He helped us come up with a new intro and an outro.
Yep.
Appreciate that. I don't know. I'll have to play around with like the manual intro versus the actual intro. I just am new to this technology, so I pressed a little button that says set as intro, and then we went live, and all of a sudden it was live. But welcome to In The N.O. Joined by Jeremy and Mason. We're here to talk about the Pelicans, the trade they made with the Pacers. We're here to talk about Kevin Durant, and just where things stand with regards to the draft. But before we get into it, make sure if you're watching this to hit the like button, the subscribe button, the share button. Let's keep getting people into our shows, and we're going to keep providing you content for as long as we can. So what's up, gentlemen? How's it going? Kevin Durant has been traded on the night or in the afternoon before the NBA Finals. Clearly, we don't care about the actual game, right?
That's what I've been told. Game 7 is meaningless. It's all about the off season.
Yeah. A joke that people tuning in for coverage on the Kevin Durant trade on ESPN tonight can be surprised when they see Game 7 of the NBA Finals going on.
Yeah, it's just don't go for it.
All jokes aside, it's not the rest of the NBA's fault that they're in the off season and the calendar is set that you can make transactions during the finals. Blame the competition committee. Blame the commissioner. I can't blame GMs for doing their jobs.
Yeah. No. I think that we can get right into it with the Kevin Durant trade, and we'll, because there's draft capital involved, that can be a nice little segue to draft capital as we go on. But the Houston Rockets have tentatively agreed upon a deal that's going to send Jalen Green, Dillon Brooks, the number 10 overall pick, and 5 second-round picks to the Phoenix Suns for Kevin Durant. Right now, there is no expansion of the trade. The trade can't take place until July 6th because of Jalen Green's poison pill restrictions. So it will happen in the next calendar year. The aprons restrictions and stuff still apply for Phoenix and whatnot. So there's some talk, and frankly, Houston, because of how this transaction is occurring. So there's talk of expanding this trade, but that might happen at a future date. So initial gut reactions to this trade. Jeremy, go.
That's all they got? There is no wing on the roster. Like, it's all on you, Grayson Allen. Have fun.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not surprised that's all they got, but it does feel like it does feel like a nice deal for Houston. I'm not big on Jalen Green. The Phoenix Suns got their next version of Jay Crowder and Dillon Brooks over there, so he'll fit right in. But look, it's a really fun time to be in the Southwest. I feel like it's always a really fun time to be in the Southwest Division, right? Luka goes out, but now we've got Wemby and Dylan Harper. Now we're gonna have and now we're Kevin Durant and Houston. So great, just great.
Yeah, look, I think Houston, really nice work from the Houston Rockets, who have gotten off Dillon Brooks' contract, gotten off the Jalen Green contract, and brought in a guy who is an all NBA level player. Obviously, when he's healthy, I don't think he is what he used to be in his prime in terms of how he impacts the winning and stuff. But as far as what Houston needs him to do, there's so many times when I watched the Houston team last year and I was like, oh, if they just had a more consistent player than Jalen Green, they'd be unbeatable, because the games where he was good and his three ball was falling, nobody could stop him, right? And then the games, which happen more often than not in the playoffs, where he just vanished and he couldn't get anything going offensively. It was like, oh yeah, Houston has one of the worst half court offenses in the league because they just don't have advantage creation, they don't have much shooting. They rely on transition and offensive rebounds to generate as a source of their points. And so I think Kevin Durant is a huge upgrade from Jalen Green, even at this age.
It just dawned on me, sorry, that the Phoenix Suns are paying over $150 million to the two-guard position next year.
Yes, they sure are.
Devin Booker, Jalen Green, Bradley Beal, Grayson Allen. Like, you can't call those guys anything else but wings, fine, but that's
Dillon Brooks. Dillon is just 6'5". I mean, add this $20 million to the tally too.
Right? Like they're at the cap. They're at the cap with two guards.
I was saying, if you look at their depth chart, it's like 18 players at the 2 guard position, 0 at the big man, and
Royce O'Neal. They're all 2 guards.
They're all 2 guards.
A bunch of 6'6" and under players, and Ryan Dunn's over there trying to figure out how to glue the defense together.
Oh, good luck.
Yeah, look, the initial reporting out of Phoenix is that they do not intend to move Jalen Green to a third team. Which, the Rockets didn't want to move Jalen Green. Yeah, whatever. I don't believe any of this stuff, right? This is what you have to say. I'm rolling my eyes here. But the initial report is they don't want to move Jalen Green. They want to move Bradley Beal, but they can't move Bradley Beal. Nobody wants him, and he will not let you move him because he has a no trade clause. And then Devin Booker is up for an extension. And so it's one of these things where it's like, all right, who's going to run your offense? What's your offense going to look like? What's your defense going to look like? And who has this 26 Phoenix pick? I think it's Memphis now, right?
It's Memphis, yes.
That convoluted thing. Yeah. Shout out to the Southwest Division, man.
Yeah. Hey, one more thing. But I understand $150 million extension. It's sitting in your face. You get there with wherever you want, buddy. You already make the 30. You already make the 35%. You don't have to stay in Phoenix to get your money. You're going to make 10 years. You can leave Phoenix to get your money. Yeah,
well, Durant is certainly leaving Phoenix to get his money to a state with no state income tax. So hopefully he's getting a raise because of that. What's interesting is that the where was I going to go with this? Oh yeah, I was going to say like the Phoenix situation is pretty interesting because everyone realizes they have a glut at 2 guard and they have a lot of like long-term money committed. So it's going to be, I think everyone's going to be watching what they're going to do in terms of how they're going to choose to shed salary. There's not that many large expirings out there. The Pelicans have one of them in CJ McCollum. So I'd be curious if I've like a thought for you guys. What would it take for Phoenix to move up from the 10 pick now to the 7 pick and take Kaman Malawach, who is projected to be there at 7, not projected to make it past Toronto at 9. What would it take if they were like, we need a center, this is who we're going to pick, in your eyes, to move from 10 to 7?
Again, Devin. Go ahead, Mason.
Oh, I guess it dawned on me that trade, the Phoenix first round pick trade, they trade that pick for like multiple seconds, right? So now all of a sudden, doesn't Phoenix have like 10 second round picks now when they had like 0 before?
They got on 5 from the Rockets just now. I think they have I have to look up their list, right? But they also split their one future like 2031 pick into 3 different picks, which were like the Cleveland picks, and one of which was sent with Nurkic to Charlotte. Okay. And so they still have 2 of those. They have pick 29 in this draft right now, as well. So they have 10 and 29 in this draft at the current moment.
Yeah. The Pelicans don't have any second round picks. Conversely, they've always traded them on little fringe moves here and there. And so I guess I'm thinking, because I'm just thinking about how many players, how many second round picks are just kind of like ancillary future picks it would take for me to move down from 7 to 10. And I don't know. I mean, it's possible. I don't know. Like, Jay, do you have thoughts on like any sort of player assets you'd want from Phoenix for that?
For them to move up to 7?
Yeah.
Unless like if they break down CJ's contract to Dylan Brooks and Grayson Allen and get some seconds on the back end. Other than that, I don't see who.
Wait, hold on. You would take on those contracts and drop down 3 spots from 7 to 10?
If I'm getting the second round picks.
You're getting second round picks?
Hey.
So I'm sorry, man. That's terrible. Like, no. The conversation to move from 10 to 7 starts with firsts to me, right? You have pick 29. You have those Horcrux picks in the future. It starts with first. Any additional contract that I'm taking on, whether it's Brooks or whoever else, I also am demanding first. Like, that's just how it, like, the market. Yeah, I mean, like, I'm sorry. I am not entertaining a world where it's like 10 plus. Like, if they were to offer me 10 plus those 5 seconds for 7, I would not do it. And so you're telling me to also take on bad money? Hell no. I'm out.
Well, it's like, yeah, it's like The only contracts that Phoenix has of value that are beyond, like obviously Devin Booker is like, are guys that they can't afford to trade. Like, I'm not saying Nick Richards is great, but like he's the one that's more on a more affordable deal. And like the Phoenix Suns literally cannot afford, if they want to stay competitive, they can't afford to move a deal like this. So yeah, like I was asking purely like, is there a guy that juices or greases the wheels here? And I'm not sure it does. And so so are you saying the 29 pick, or are you saying there's a future pick out there that?
No, I would want one of those like Cleveland picks that they ended up like getting, right? Plus some seconds. Like I would want, if I'm dropping down from 7 to 10, you need to incentivize me with one first round pick and few seconds. Like that's what it's going to take for me. Because I don't think those Cleveland picks are going to be any good. So that's a weird, that was a weird trade when they made it. It's a weird trade now. Now I think I'm in the minority here, is I could be talked into Jalen Green for CJ, that kind of a pick, or that kind of a swap, if that makes any sense. And I would not do Jalen Green for CJ and 7 where you also get 10. That's not something I would do, but I think that gets like close to balancing the books there. I think that gets close.
I'm not a Jalen Green guy, and I don't think Dillon Brooks is bad money. I think if he is what he's been in Houston the last 2 years, I don't think he's bad money. I think it's declining. It's right around the MLE. And
what?
He's a service to start. It's not even,
dude. He's making $21 million a year. That's like double the MLE.
No,
and he's gonna he makes $20 million the next year. Dillon Brooks is bad money, man.
I gotta look, because I thought it was declining.
It is declining, but it declines from 21 to 20.
Oh,
yeah.
I still don't think it's terrible money, but I see what you're saying.
It's not the worst. I would rather have him than KCP.
Yes, I still believe in his defense. I believe in the shot. It isn't manifested from one of the greatest passes of all time. So I would have no issues taking on that contract. I will stand in a minority stating that, if that was to take place.
Sure. I think there's a price.
I don't know.
I've always been a fan of Dillon, so this just made me my personal bias at play here.
Yeah. What's the? I'm very curious within Phoenix, the front office, like what the value by taking the 10 pick off the table, like what value they place on the combination of Dillon Brooks and Jalen Green. Because
I'm portion of Kevin Durant. That's the value that they put on it.
Well, there's a 10 pick in the draft there. That's the main prize in that trade. But I don't know. I feel like both those players with the contracts they're owed in concert, like, doesn't feel like much positive value there. It doesn't.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I'm certain that Phoenix is probably going to try to do some more because they have obvious holes on their team, and I wouldn't be surprised if Houston, is a team that's going to explore adding more arrows to their quiver. But this is a low stakes move, in my opinion. I don't know if they're going to extend Kevin Durant or not, but I wouldn't be in a rush to do it. Quite honestly, right? Like everywhere Durant has gone in a recent space, it's like ended up crashing and burning. Maybe Ime Udoka is the one that can bridge the gap there, but like there shouldn't be a rush to lock in a long-term deal with I think 37-year-old Kevin Durant. I think that's how old he is now. That would be my thing. You still have your young core. You can, at best, like you get off $55 million on your books next year. Like that's great. Like you're entering with that level of cap flexibility. Before Amen needs an extension, before Cam Whitmore needs an extension, Reed, all these guys, Jabari, we don't know. We'll see how they ends up playing with Jabari, but they did good. They didn't include any of those guys in that trade.
Yeah. That cap sheet. I mean, their books look really clean. I mean, Houston's in a good spot.
Yeah. So this is a good time to transition to the later part of the draft where the Pelicans made a trade with the Indiana Pacers. They traded the 2029 pick. Sorry, not the 2029. Sorry, the 2026 pick for this year's Pacers pick at pick 23. I know we kind of talked about it online. I don't know if we talked about it formally here, but just where are you guys at with that transaction? Also, they got the rights to Mojave King.
I can't remember. We didn't talk about that last podcast.
Yeah,
We can announce it.
No, it happened during the week. We talked about it privately.
Oh yeah. I think I was as we chatted about this. I was a little bit lower on the deal than both of y'all, just because I like having the lottery ticket. Just because I don't see a ton of risk in the pick getting. It's 23 right now, right? And like, could it be like 28, 29 next year? Yeah, I don't know. I'm a little bit bearish on this Indiana Pacers team doing what they did again next year, despite the weakness of the Eastern Conference. And so I see a world where the pick is most likely 25 or so next year. Let's call it that. But so if you have 25 with an opportunity for it to be much better, the pick's only top 4 protected. I'd rather just roll the dice on that because the downside risk isn't significant compared to where they are now. Obviously, the time value of money or assets matter here, and so like having the asset this year versus next year helps. If you like this draft better, I trust the Pelicans front office to tell me which draft they like more. But I didn't feel like it was like it wasn't immediately like, oh, this is a positive value return for the Pelicans. I get why they did it, but I wasn't super bullish on it.
Yeah, I understood the process. Again, I'm more on the side of it's a fairly decent deal. More than likely, we're talking about the team that lost in the Eastern Conference last year is in a Game 7 tonight in the finals, in a weaker conference. It probably will be in that same range, and as Mason discussed, I trust that they love prospects in that range this year rather than next year, and it's something that's tangible in hand right now, and you could trade it off in the next couple of seasons, as opposed to dangling the carrot that may have the same thing. Because the top four protection kind of takes the luster off it being a true lottery ticket.
Yeah, I guess my one question I haven't asked until I just thought of it now. Why not wait till tomorrow to make the same deal?
That's a good question. I think so. So where I'm at with this is, again, this is having some conversations with some people. I think there's a couple of valuation factors that went into this. One, the chance of the Pacers being better or worse is probably even if you were to like sim out 100 seasons. So like 23 is probably around the average value that you're going to get. So it, like Mason said, it kind of turns into, do you want $10 today versus $10 tomorrow, right? The second thing is, this is a little bit of an unusual draft in that it is interestingly deep when it comes to players around pick 23 and in that general range, as opposed to most drafts where it is a true crapshoot when you're kind of past the lottery, right? Not saying that obviously like every single draft produces valuable players past the lottery. It happens all the time. But this is one where the Pelicans are expressing a great deal of confidence in their evaluation of the class and the preparation that they've done into knowing who's going to be there, that they were like, hey, this is, to me, it signals they're targeting like a couple specific players that they are expecting to be in that range. And that's why you do it now versus, on the clock or anything later, right? Because then you have pick 23 and you can actually start working those guys' agents and
Sure.
kind of massaging the stuff behind the scenes, because there is a fair number of campaigning and recruiting that goes on behind the scenes. Even, if a guy is like, still in the workout process, they might be like, look, like, hey, like, don't work out with this team that has the 25th pick. Don't work out with a team that has the 27th pick. Don't give them your medicals, things like that. I know for a fact that Kobe Buffkin, who was the same draft class as Jordan Hawkins, him and his agent thought that they were going to go higher than where the Pelicans selected. So they canceled their workout last minute and they refused to provide medicals. And they came draft time. He started slipping. He got the Pelicans agent and was like, hey, can you draft him? The Pelicans were like, we don't have any information on you. We liked you. We would have picked you. You're high on the board, but we don't have any information. Like, we can't do this blindly. And so they ended up not picking him, right? So that's the kind of thing where you have 23 in hand. You can maybe manipulate some of those outcomes to your favor with some guys. And I think that's at least some of the thought process there. The other thing is, like, going back to the expressing confidence in this draft class, like Joe Dumars said it in an interview when he interviewed with Rod. He's like, I know this draft class. Troy Weaver is someone that is, we've talked about, is a draft like sicko. He consumes everything about the draft. That is his like skill set. We've talked about doubling down on your strengths as an organization. If you want to do that, you give those guys, if they're high level talent evaluators, you give them multiple shots to showcase their talent. And I do think, like, the Pelicans have been quite thorough in working out. Like, they worked out all of those guys that are in that projected range prior to even having the pick. And so I think that played into, like, okay, let's go get this pick right now. We've done the homework,
Yeah. That makes sense. Having it and encouraging prospects to work out because you do have it. That makes sense. I just think I think it's been documented. I mean, not on this podcast, but the Pacers' rationale for doing it around freeing up extra, potential draft capital to trade and other things. And so, no, I don't think they, assuming whether or not they win the title or not tonight, I don't think they walk away from this deal regardless. Whereas, I think I'm not even going to say it. I'm not even going to say it because it'll come back on me if a catastrophe happens. So we all know what I'm thinking, but I'm not going to say it. So that would change the value of that pick for next year. So anyway, we can move on.
Yeah. So I think one thing I asked you guys to do before coming into this podcast is to just do some research on guys you might think would be a good fit on this. And I think I asked for 3 to 5 guys. I don't know how many each of you guys have. I think you guys might know your lists better than I do. But the way I'm going to structure this is I'm going to ask for your guys as like number one, we'll talk about that. And then I guess I'll pull up my article. I kind of have like my numbers in there. And we'll just kind of like work our way down the list in terms of like how we evaluate why we have that guy there, how we evaluate their strengths. And then we can cap it off with just any other interesting names that may or may not find themselves in that range. Cool. So I think let's start off. I'll start with you, Mason. Who is your number one on the list of guys that might be there at 23 that you think that you'd be excited to see?
Yeah. So I took in this process, I tried to be as conservative as possible, where like if I saw a bunch of mocks and like half or more had that player leaving or getting drafted before the Pelicans were picking, I removed them. So there might be some folks that I don't have on my list that Jay, you do, or Schmidt, you do, just because I was trying to make this as realistic as possible. But I think number one for me is Nick Clifford from Colorado State. And so I'll say the first thing I'm going to play devil's advocate on the age thing. And you've talked about this in your article, Schmidt, but he's old, right? Old for a draft pick. I see that as opportunity when it comes to 23. When it comes to that late first round, I see it as opportunity. And the reason is not because I think he's more NBA ready. It's because of the value of that pick. And if he hits, his prime is your second contract. I remember talking about this back with, I think, probably like Malcolm Brogdon or something a long time ago. But like, if he hits, your second contract is his NBA prime. That's like age 27 to 30. You're getting a bargain. And so I think the skill set wise, I think we saw in March Madness, but even before that, I mean, he's versatile. I think he's not huge, but he's got wingspan to make up for the raw height. I think he's a versatile offensive player. I think he's got defensive toughness. This is a lot to like about him. I don't think he's like a superstar in any one area, but I really do. I think, I don't know. I see a lot of promise here, and I think the Pelicans could potentially use that age to their advantage longer term if he hits. And at that pick, it is an if, right? There's no guarantees. So he's number one for me.
Okay. I think I'm a big fan of Neek. I will tell you. And Jay, if you had him on your list,
he was on
let
my
me know.
list. He was on
your
my
list.
Yes.
Yeah. So he was he on my actual big board, or what? Not my big board because you don't want to call it that, but my list of guys who I think will provide value on their rookie contract. I have him as 19th overall. So ahead of that 23 range. So I think that I expect him to be better than the 23rd player in the draft. So I think, Mason, I agree with you that that's a really, really good selection. I had a first round grade on him last year. But yeah, Jay, like what you had him on your list too?
He was on my list. I'm a Pimp Schmidt's article on the Substack. He had 18 guys that he recommended and would have on his big board. So you guys check that out on the Substack. My number one guy, I talked about him when someone asked about a second round pick. He made his way, turned himself to a first round pick, and we got one at the bottom. Walter Clayton Jr. I want him. He's a great shooter, both off the catch and off the dribble. He uses that to get his way into the paint. He actually was a 6% shooter at the rim, according to Hoop Intellect. And while he doesn't have great stop ability, he uses his advantages from deep. And like we're talking 28, 30, 31 feet from the basket. Use those advantages to get to the rim. So he's number one on me, and on RookieScale.com's consensus ranking, they have him 27th. I think you had him 8 on your board, and like I said, I've liked him even before the national championship run. That was a game I think he played against Georgia, and it just looked like NBA basketball on the collegiate floor, and he was spearheading that entire the entire offense. So yeah, they got 23. I will love that selection there if he makes it.
Yeah, no, big fan of Walter Clayton Jr. I think he is someone that has the potential to return star upside. I'm not again with any of these prospects outside of like Cooper, none of that is likely. But it's one of these things where when guards tend to turn into stars or quasi stars, it's because they can score the shit out of the ball, and they can score the shit out of the ball by shooting the shit out of the ball. Especially if you're smaller and you're not like 6'6", and you don't offer like that kind of positional versatility. The small guards of late that have tended to succeed. You look at the Tyrese Maxeys, you look at even McCain, right? Like he's producing more value than expected because he can shoot the crap out of the ball.
Yep.
CJ McCollum, 4-year player. Lehigh comes in, is one of the best shooters in the league, one of those versatile shooters in the league. And so that's a great comment.
Fantastic.
So good. You figured it was Walter. Yeah, no, he's someone that I think like out the gate, like he like I think almost 40% of his possessions were pick and roll possessions. So he's not someone, there's been questions that I've gotten in our Discord that what separates him from Trey Johnson? What separates him from Jordan Hawkins? What separates him from Devontae Graham even? And to me, it's his real on-ball equity. Like he can handle the ball. He has a minuscule turnover rate. He is a solid, unspectacular, but solid playmaker. A guy like Trey Johnson, a guy like Jordan Hawkins, like they don't get to the rim. They simply, and when they do get to the rim, they don't finish well. This guy finished well. He got to the rim. In the half court, he had a 60% true shooting. And yeah, I just think he's someone that from the outset, if he's going to be empowered, you set a screen from him 28 feet from the basket. That big who's guarding that ball screen is going to need to step up to contain him, because if not, he's going to walk into that three. And he's going to be a drop buster, and I think those type of players are very exciting.
Yep.
So he was also, I guess, technically number one on my list of guys who might be there. But yeah, let's go on to number two. Jay, who's your number 2?
Let's get weird. Let's get a 6'11" 2 guard, and at least that's how he thinks. Danny Wolf from Michigan. Rookiescale.com. Again, this is where I got my consensus rankings. They had him 24th. Now I don't think he's quick enough to do everything he wants to do, but I see a lot of things that I like about Kelly Olynyk in him. He can get to the cup. He can try to defend, even though he doesn't want to play the 5. He might get some rude awakenings when he gets to the league. Or if the Pelicans select the center, or if Misi is still a guy, they may be able to work in tandem. I like his offensive creation. I like his ability to shoot, and his willingness to shoot. And I like, even though he turns the ball over a little bit too much for my liking, I do like the playmaking aspect of him as well. And again, it's the 23rd pick. Like, where I'll say this for every person that I think about, I'll say the same thing as Misi. If you get a rotation player at 23rd overall pick, you want. So this is how I'm viewing things. At least rotation, possible starter and star.
Mason, did you end up having him on your list, or was he one of the guys you feel like you?
I weeded him out. I thought he's going to be gone by 23. I had Clayton on mine. I did Clayton on mine. I think those are the two that Jay and I had to and I think that's where it ends. But yeah, I like Wolf. I just don't think he's going to be at 23. Fair
enough. Yeah, I think that I had him 21 on my overall on my first round, and he got a green room invite, so it's more than likely that he's going to go in the first round. Maybe one of the first 24 picks, because there's only 24 people invited. But I think he's a fun player. He's a dart that you throw at 23. He has very unique skills at his size, which is the size of a center. Now, he doesn't like to play center. We've heard that before, which is fine. Which is all right. I don't mind pairing a skilled big next to another big. So at 23, I'd be happy with him. He does have defensive concerns, especially, again, because he's not going to play full-time center. He has turnover concerns where some of the decisions he makes are completely bizarre. And he isn't the best shooter yet, right? The shooting might just be theoretical. So it is one of those situations where if you plant him on a team, there's going to be moments where things are going to look really, really wild. Like, you guys remember Poku and what the Thunder try to do with him, and him throwing just absurd passes, some really good, some just into the stands. But it's also going to need to be a thing where a coach is going to have to empower him to do some of that stuff. You can't just pigeonhole him into being a standard big man or whatnot. For guys like that, they have unique strengths. You got to let those unique strengths shine. And if they fail, you only learn that by putting them through the ringer pretty quickly. Yeah. But Mason, who was your number 2?
So I had my number 1 was Nick. I didn't really rank them in order. Sure. I don't know if Clayton's 2 or 3, but and you may tell me this is a ridiculous statement, but why draft Trey Johnson at 7, which you can have him at 23, and that's Will Riley? Just
whoa. Okay. Whoa. Trey Johnson and Will Riley? Wait. Draw the line for me.
Just not reckless. We're getting more reckless with offensive game. We talk about Will Riley, but I like that a guy can go get his own bucket, is truly fearless with the ball in his hands. I feel like given his role with Illinois, he's someone who probably hasn't hit their full potential. There are obviously a lot of red flags there as well, but I think as far as we're going to throw some darts at 23, I'd like to see what he can turn into in the NBA.
Okay.
He was not on my list.
He's what's interesting? So I'll say this about Will Riley. I honestly, you make the Trey comp, and I think it's a little bit different because Trey is an elite shooter. Trey Johnson, that is, not Murph. Murph is an elite shooter, but Trey Johnson is an elite shooter, and that is like the one thing like he has like going for him as a bankable skill. Riley was not that, right? Riley was, but he's young. He's the size of a wing. He's legitimately, I think he's like 6'9" at the combine, 6'8" at the combine. He's a young scoring wing, and if you watch him, he moves very, very much like Brandon Ingram. Deliberate pace, crafty footwork. He has high release points. Like that is more of the mold of a player that I kind of view him as opposed to like if to me, in my opinion, if Trey Johnson hits, he's going to hit because he's going to turn into a crazy like movement shooter that can score fire shots at all kind of release angles and drain them. But Will Riley, to me, the better one I think is why draft Ace Bailey at 3 plus that million.
Fair. I like that. The second you said it, said not Trey, but I knew where you were going.
That's kind of where I'm at with Will Riley. Not my style of players, but I can see Will Riley. Again, these wings are intriguing, and they oftentimes end up being a little too intriguing in that they don't give you real value on the rookie scale, but they're just intriguing enough to earn an overpay. But like Ace Bailey is going to be a $45 million overpay, and Will Riley might be a $30 million overpay. Shout out to my guy Ryan Bernardoni who made this comparison in his no scout mock draft or what go check out his big board. It's always a pleasure to read.
Second contract guy is a very fair concern for him, I think.
Yeah, he's young, but he had a great workout for the Pelicans. I can tell you that. Huh. He had a great workout for the Pelicans. That's where I'm at with Will Riley.
Guess it's time to go with my third is what I'm going with.
Yeah.
Mike, you're in the chat. One of us did not ignore Cedric Howard. That guy was me. Yes, this is the first one I'm going to say that is ranked above 23. He's ranked 17th on the consensus big board. I project him to be what I thought Jay Will would be prior to this breakout, what he was. Like, just a versatile guy, the great measurables. He can shoot it. Don't know if he's going to be able to have a consistent way to get to the bucket and drive with at will. I don't like the Jay Will comparisons. I don't like the Herb Zone comparisons. But just a guy who can shoot it, and you can, like I said, the measurables say that he can defend in space. He can get deflections. He can get steals. But I wouldn't completely bank on it because he doesn't have enough film against high-level competition. But again, at 23, that's something wild. Maybe he's a second contract guy, but I will take the shot on him because, again, the measurables and the ability to shoot it from deep already.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And look, he's another one of these old, he's not.
Yeah, another older guy.
He's an older prospect. He's super fascinating because he's like 3-year efficiency is like equivalent to like Zion. And I understand like some of that is like lower level of competition his first couple of years, but like basically his like true shooting has gone like 67, 68, 70%. And it's just like, he's shot well enough, he's finished well enough, and he's gotten to the free throw line well enough to where you're like, okay, this guy has been efficient at everything that he's done. At some point, it just makes the draft the wing size player who also generates defensive events and is efficient. Like that is like, I will take that guy at 23 if he's there. Like I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth. Like that's where I'm at with that. But yeah, Mason, you thought he'd be going higher?
Yeah, I mean, just from the research I did on some of the mocks, it just seemed like generally he was going to be gone by the time I got there.
Can I make an observation right quick?
Yeah, what's up?
I think these guys from like 15 to 30 are like all similar tiered players. So while some of these guys I got some that's at 19, some as low as 27 with Walter Clayton. I still think they're like the same level of guys. So to what one person thinks should be in the high teens, another person may think is to go at the beginning of the second round. That's how I viewed it.
No, completely fair. I mean, I think it. Look, the draft, just like the lottery, it's one simulation, right? I mean, like I'm trying to create laws of averages here with the various mock drafts and just trying to pick based on that. But like all the guys I pick could be gone by the time we get to 23, and you guys could be there. And so you just know, you truly never know. So yeah, and it also helped to give us a bit of a different answer, I think, too, to give players higher.
I never actually gave my number 2 and 3 guys. So I'm going to do that real quick. My number 2, so my number 1 was Walter Clayton. And again, I looked at the consensus big board rankings to see who would be potentially around that draft area. My number 2 was Ryan Kalkbrenner. And Kalkbrenner is someone that was ranked as 32 on the consensus big boards and not a first round pick, which I think is surprising. And I have him ranked 13 overall, with regards to the first round. So here's how I view Ryan Kalkbrenner. I think he is one of the best play finishers in this class, if not the best play finisher. He had at the rim finishing rates comparable to Zach Edey. He is a massive, massive body who can block shots and is a competent defensive player. Not competent, like he was a genuinely very good defensive player, but in the NBA, he's going to be a drop big. He's not going to be a guy that's going to switch out to the perimeter. He's going to be more of a Walker Kessler type, who Walker Kessler has returned tremendous value on his contract. I think he's a better offensive player than Walker Kessler. He has a legitimate ability to score on smalls, so you're not going to get away with hiding, some smaller players on him. And I think he is really coordinated in the air. That like he is an underrated lob threat. He's not like the best. He's not like a Yves Messi level athlete, but he has an enormous catch radius and like he has great hands and finishes the ball. And I think those type of bigs, like again, just who are efficient, who do all the dirty work. That do everything that you want from a big man, it's like they stick around and they have success. And I think teams overthink them every single year. They overthought it with Quinton Post. He's a large guy. He's become a rotation player. They overthought it with Walker Kessler himself, right? So these type of bigs, like, you don't take them in the lotto because they're young. Not young, because they're older and they're one position bigs. They don't really have the ability to play the 4 or the 3 or whatever. But almost always when you look at retrospective like draft class rankings, you're like, oh yeah, there's that big who just does big man things and he's returned like top 7 value in the class, right? Like Zubac, for example, like he just made all defensive honors. And like, what has he done? He's just been a grinder every single season that he's been in. And so like, I view Kalkbrenner as that. I think where he can go, where it might be interesting for him. He's not an elite tier rebounder, right? And so I do think bigs need to be amazing on the defensive glass, but we'll see how that plays out at the next level. I think he's a good, but not elite rebounder. That's where I'm at with him.
All right.
Who's 3?
Oh yeah, 3. And I'm interested to see if you guys have him on your board. Rasheer Fleming.
Yes, he was 4 for me.
Okay, so let's talk about Rasheer Fleming. I have him. I view him as a guy. So first of all, he measured almost identically to Jared Allen, which is kind of wild.
Yeah.
But he took a decent volume of threes this year. I think he's better on the perimeter, both offensively and defensively, than Jared Allen. I think Jared Allen better on the interior than him, but a really, really good athlete, vertical athlete. Like you watch like Obi Toppin right now, and you're like, okay, if Obi Toppin
that's a good
came
comp.
in with a little bit of better defensive metrics, that's Fleming, right? And so I think, again, but also because of his age, he's going to be someone that slots right into a role rather than someone that is like, oh, I got to feed this guy usage and shots and like try to turn him into a star or whatever. Like, I think he's played a specific role, and that role is going to be like that 4 or 5 hybrid. And I think that's a very valuable player.
Couldn't agree more. I was like, he isn't Draymond Green because he can't pass the ball like Draymond. Then there's only one of those. So I was thinking of a comp, and Obi Toppin with better defensive instincts may be the actual comp to give him. And Obi was a older prospect as well, to let you know that just because you're 22, 23 doesn't mean that you can't grow within the league.
And Obi was like incredible offensively.
Yes.
In college, just offensively. I think but I think Yeah, I think Fleming is less of an offensive talent than Obi, but he may be more ready to slide into the role that Obi is now than like Obi was when he was first drafted.
Yeah. Yep.
That's my general thoughts. But yeah, let's go on to that was your 4. Mason, who's your
Go ahead.
4?
So I got one other guy, and this is the one I am the least knowledgeable on of some of the research I did, but I like it's a young guy that I'm based on what I've read, what I've seen. I want to throw another dart on, and that's the French point guard Nolan Traore.
Okay.
And so I think I'm not going to say why draft fears we could draft him because I know that is very much not the right comparison here. But I don't know. It just seems like his feel for the game is there at a very young age. It seems like he's comfortable offensively. His shot's not great, but great passer. Can score. Is decent enough size for a point guard, right? Like he's not going to be able to switch on to huge wings unless he's like Drew Holiday level defender, but he's big enough to kind of to be a point guard. And so I think there's, again, just from what I've seen, there's enough there for me to say this guy with the right work on his jumper could turn into something real. And I feel like even if not, you've got. I think the chances of him becoming a rotation player in the league feel pretty good. And so, like you said, Jay, at 23, I'm okay with that one. And so again, whether it's before we're talking about Neek and being a lot older, I think Nolan's probably one of the youngest players in this draft, right? And so are pretty young. So he's intriguing to me.
Do you have any opinion on Nolan, Jay?
Zero. This is where draft is out of my depth. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, fair. Look, like we're not all going to pretend to be like experts on these guys, but I think Mason, I think at 23, that's a pretty good gamble, right? When this is a guy that was projected to be top 5 coming into this year, and he's been playing so many games overseas, like he barely had any break between his summer because he went. He thought he would. I was reading something about this. There was at least some thought that he might make the French national team, and he was like going like training's like super hard for that spot. And so like I think his body's kind of like at a point where it's like I've played so much in such a little span of time that I could probably use a break. And you're seeing that in his efficiency numbers. But this is someone that has a case for the best passer in the class. He has great vision. He's very bursty. He can create advantages, and he uses those advantages to play make really, really well at a really high level. But like with all guards, so much of it's going to depend on his shooting efficiency and his ability to shoot the ball. And right now, that's a fair question mark.
Where thinking about past Pelicans, where would you have his draft valuation compared to Kyra when Kyra came out?
I thought Kyra I loved Kyra as a prize.
I know.
And that was like a big blind spot for me, I think. But again, like at the same time, like Kyra, I thought projected to be a very, very good shooter for both from a free throw standpoint. He shot pretty well in college, and he wasn't afraid to shoot in college. Now, there was a number of developmental hurdles that Kyra encountered at the pro level from, 3 coaches, from an injury, from one of the coaches just berating him at practice and making him lose his confidence, like things like that. Like there was a lot of things going on with him, and he's lost a lot of development time, both the COVID and the injury. But all guards need to learn how to shoot. I thought Kyra was a better prospect than Traore, but Traore is bigger. Traore is bigger, and by that alone, like I think you can talk yourself into he has greater upside, at least from a two-way potential, than Kyra. And I think Traore is just a better passer than Kyra. Where Kyra, I think, was like, I'm gonna beat you to the paint, and then when the defense eventually collapses, I can like play make. Traore, like, it's so weird watching him. Like, I get like LaMelo and Lonzo vibes, where like how he processes the floor, like in the way he kind of moves. So it's I think he's a different level of playmaker. I'm not saying he is LaMelo, but it's like he's better than Kyra in that regard as a point guard. He's I would be fine with him at 23. Absolutely fine with him.
Did Pels work him out or no?
I don't think anybody had a chance to work him out because he was overseas.
Oh, yeah, fair.
But I could be wrong. Yeah.
That's my list.
Okay. Jay, did you have any more?
I have one more. Probably won't be at 23, but I'm intrigued with Jace Richardson. Maybe because I've seen his dad play. I don't know, and he plays nothing like his dad, which is hilarious. But again, another shooter, a willing creator. He's a smaller guard, though he has a +5 wingspan. When Michigan State guards always intrigue me, and like I just like his fluidity and how he plays on the court. So again, guy who can even though he's a small guy, he can shoot, and just another guy that I would really find intriguing if he fell to 23. He was 15th on the consensus big board. On this, go ahead.
I love Jace.
Yeah,
because he's a hooper. He's a hooper. He models really well analytically, like really, really well, right? He had some of the highest impact stats in this class, and then as a freshman. I think what's interesting is that people who are low on him because he is a small guard who didn't display a ton of playmaking ability, and he played mostly off the ball. And so when you categorize it to guys who are like 6'2" and under, and they're not point guards, like who are your archetypes and were they successful? And it's a pretty limited list of players, right? You have like Pat Beverly, you have like Avery Bradley. That's kind of what Bronny James was supposed to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like in fitting into that style of player who's going to complement like any, like jumbo wings and jumbo creators. But I think Jace is a little bit different in that he played with a point guard the other years in this class. And then he also took on whatever role was required of him. If they needed him to be an all-ball creator, he did it. If they needed him to be a off-ball guy, he did it. Could he get to the rim and finish? He did it. Could he break down guys off a dribble? Like to me, he scaled up and down to whatever MSU needed from him. And the fact that he maintained his efficiency and he maintained a very low turnover rate, it's like very, very exciting for me. And so do I think this guy's going to be a star? No, not at all. Do I think that like, you find yourself in the playoffs and you're like, oh my God, this Jace Richardson guy's like come off the bench and giving them, 15 efficient points and he's played competitive defense. Like, yeah, like, like the role that like Jose plays for
Tyus Jones, Seth Curry,
sure.
something in that
Exactly.
right.
Yeah. And like, look, Tyus Jones and Monty Morris and all those guys are better playmakers than Jace. Yeah. I believe that. But like when they end up playing with better offensive players, the ball's out of their hands. They don't really have the opportunity to make the way they do. And so the question with Jace is like, is he a good connective piece? Can he keep the ball moving? Can he, whatever advantages the key guys create, can he maintain them or extend them or finish them? And I think like, yes, absolutely on all of those. So, but he's going to Matt Ishbia's team at 10, probably.
I was say, and the Pelicans just hired Michigan State player, right, in the front office.
Yeah, so, we got Steve Smith's son, right?
Yeah, Steve Smith's kid. Yeah. Yep. So there's your connection to Michigan State. There we go.
Yeah, no, I like Jace a lot. Yeah, look, I think the 23 is such an exciting spot. I think we've all kind of gravitated around the fact that there are some very interesting players. There's some players in the chat that I want to talk about. There's a lot of questions about Reno at 23, and I don't know if you guys have had an opportunity to watch Reno or evaluate him in any sense. Open that up before I give my thoughts.
No.
Yeah,
I haven't.
I took a look. I can't remember if he was someone I asked because of the projected spot in the draft, but I don't think he was. I think he was not someone that's projected to go that high, right?
No.
Yeah.
No, 23 is like probably I think like the higher end of his range, unless someone goes totally crazy. But Reno is like to fill you guys in. He went to Stanford, was a senior.
Okay, I remember this guy. Yeah, I remember. Yep.
Yeah, he averaged 20 points, almost 11 rebounds. Showed very intriguing skills for a big man in terms of like the way he moves and the way he creates shots. He shoots threes. Like very skilled big man. That's where he was. Played decently well at the combine. again, just a huge body. I don't hate, like, look, if the Pelicans evaluate Reno and they're like, this is a guy that like we think is going to pop because he's a skilled big man and he can fill that role, like, I don't hate it. But I'm a little bit lower on him. I don't think he's going to translate defensively. I think that, for players like him, that they really need, again, same thing with Danny Wolf, like they really need to be empowered by their coaching staffs. And like more often than not, these coaching staffs, if you're a big man and you can't defend, they're just like, you're not getting on the court. And so I think that's where they start running into issues. But he is someone, look, guys who are his size and skilled always have a pathway to returning value, always have a pathway to success. And so it is definitely more of a dart throw to me than like a sure thing. Like, okay, like this is a productive senior with a safe floor. I don't think that's the case. I don't think it's a productive senior with a safe floor. He is a productive senior, but that floor and ceiling, there's enough variance that can occur there to make him a gamble rather than someone like Joe Nybroom, who, is more of the safe senior, who I think also could be available at 23, Is
it too cliche to compare him to the Lopez twins? Because they're all
I think the Lopez twins are very forceful, and I would not describe this guy as a forceful player. I would describe him as more of a finesse player. That's how I would describe him. But, guys can grow into any number of things. Yeah, look, there's a few wings that could be in this range. Noah Penda is a French wing. I'm a little wary of these like low usage wings who are not good at offense, but they're good at all these other things. But at a certain point, like 23, they're all flawed players, right?
Yep.
There's a lot of big men. I think if Sorber falls to 23, that would be a home run. I have him pretty high up on my board. That's
a guy from Georgia, right? Georgetown. Yes, I did look at them.
No, I think Sorber would be incredible. There's other guys like here's a comment right here. What about adding Thoreau as another athletic wing? I don't hate the idea. I'm a little bit lower on Thoreau just because, like, again, these wings who can't shoot, just it's so hard to find a spot for them in the NBA. Herb Jones, if he doesn't shoot the way Herb Jones has shot, is someone that struggles to crack rotations against good teams. And
Andre Roberson.
Exactly. So there's a limit to those guys. Like, can they be useful? Can they return value? Yes, sure. Would I rather take them in the second round? Absolutely. Right. I like Cam Jones a lot. 23-year-old guard, Marquette. I think he's one of the best drivers in the class. He gets to the rim. He's been a 4-year player who has finished at the rim at such a high clip. He has good size. He had one of the best assist to turnover ratios in the country. He averaged almost 6 assists a game. I think trying to remember how many turnovers he had, but it was minuscule. Like his assist rate was like 40% and his turnover rate was like 10%. And so that should tell you like how competent he was with the ball. I think that's a guy that will slide right in. He showed prior to this year, he was a high level off ball spot up player. And he's converted on nearly like 40% of his spot up looks like throughout his last few years, which is pretty promising for someone to toggle off the ball. And then now you tell me he can get to the rim and he can play make and not turn the ball over. Sure. 23-year-old, like guard, whatever, like cool. Those are players that are going to work at 23. Here's a question that was asked in the chat earlier. I think that's pretty interesting. Dejounte Murray and 7.
I did see that in the chat.
Dejounte Murray and 7 for something in 10. Where would you guys land on that? And for me, that something would have to be Jalen Green. But I also, just because of like Phoenix's aggregation issues and stuff, I don't think they have a salary that works. That would be Jalen Green.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I would rather 3. Even I don't like Jalen Green the player. I also didn't like Dejounte Murray initially when we got him. And one is healthy. One is younger. So yes, I would definitely consider it and probably would do that deal if presented to me.
I'm less. I feel less strongly about that. I'm not ready to. I'm not ready to close the book on Dejounte Murray, the basketball player. I feel like that there's this. It's not a death sentence. Like Achilles injuries suck, but also they've been more players have come back from them than they have recently, than previously, and so I guess understanding that we're probably gonna DeJounte's going to be out for the first couple months of the year. I understand that, but I also I don't know. I'm not ready to just trade him off for spare parts. Kind of like, and I'm just not a Jalen Green guy.
Spare parts? I don't know.
I don't think it's spare parts.
That's an exaggeration, fair. But at the same time, like, and I guess the one thing I'm not thinking about is like how much of what we heard, we didn't talk about the Dejounte Murray interview and what he said about the Pelicans.
We sure did.
But
let's cover that briefly, and then that can be our concluding topic.
Okay, yeah.
In relation to this trade,
unintentional segue, but like, yeah. Maybe we should. Maybe the Pelicans should trade him. I don't know, because that was rough, man.
I think first of all, with regards to Dejounte, like he's clearly an individual that has gone through a lifetime of suffering and trauma, and
yes.
I wish nothing but the best to come to him and all of his people. Yeah.
Yes.
And I think I hope he's able to get whatever support system and help he needs to help process that stuff and deal with that stuff in whatever form or fashion that looks like for him. I hope that. I think a lot of what he said was coming from a place of hurt, given everything that went down from him on a personal level last season. I do know, like, it's not my place to comment on what is true or not. What I can say is that he said certain things about the organization with regards to like table time not being available, having it difficult to get his lifts in, difficult to find on court time. And when you ask the organization about it, they feel like that is it's unfortunate he sees it that way, because in their eyes, like everything wasn't made available to him. Without a shadow of a doubt. So there is clearly some kind of disconnect and discrepancy that Joe Dumars is going to have to tackle and address at some level, and repair. And to me, it's like less important about like if those things are factual or not. Like I do know for a fact that like they post these schedules every single day and the players are all on them, and that like I know that, but it's more important to me that like he feels a certain way and that be addressed, and whatever the root cause of it, like they get down to it, because you don't want anybody associated with the organization to like have those kind of resentful feelings. They feel like, like they were, I guess, not paid attention to or whatnot. And I think Joe has to bridge that gap.
Yeah. I two ways about this. I did enjoy enjoy is the wrong word. I appreciated him shedding a light on the Pelicans organization and how at times it could feel inept when it comes to some of the not taking advantage of everything you can to help out your players and to try to be at the higher levels of competition. At the same token, I just don't know how much of that, again, is true. And Schmidt is saying that they're saying that a lot of it, some of it isn't true. And more importantly, hey, man, my mom had a stroke. I don't know how I would think. If I had my career flashing in front of my eyes, I don't know how I think. If I had a homie of mine that he's went through a lot. So the person, man, I want the best for him. The player had an effective field goal effective field goal percentage of 44.4% before he got injured, even if you factor in the hand injury. And before the trade, I always thought if the shooting was a fluke from last year, then what? And we saw then what? And he was empowered one even from coaching staff onto himself, go back and go midi hunting instead of taking more pull up threes. He turned the ball over a lot, even though he caused turnovers himself. And I would rather the younger guy who has, they both have the same contract length, but yeah, I would just go with the 2021 class and roll with those three and take another and not take another spin around the Dejounte Murray roller coaster, personally.
Fair enough.
Well, I get it. I guess, just to close out, I mean, I just want to say, I feel like I was making light of the Dejounte Murray interview in the sense of that, that's something else we should think about in whether or not the Pelicans trade him. But I think, to Schmidt, to your point, I mean, that he dropped some very real shit on that podcast. And I think he went through a ton. And so I think it's good on him for, being vulnerable and sharing that information, how he felt with everyone and everything he went through. And I mean, part of it could be just everything weighing on him made him feel some sort of way about the team that wasn't all reality, but it feels like kind of, I'm not here to say he was wrong, right? I mean, like, it's not like we haven't heard Boogie or Kendrick Perkins or whoever else talk down on the organization with an axe to grind. And so, look, some of the stuff is probably real. Pelicans got to figure some stuff out, and maybe some of it is a little exaggerated. That's just where we are. And so, but I'm wishing the best to Dejounte. Hopefully things start to turn around for him, and best for the rest of his rehab process.
Look, I think that Jalen Green isn't someone that's going to be easier to deal with on a game-to-game basis or on an off-court basis than Dejounte, but I don't think he's necessarily going to be worse to deal with. So it's just if this is a viable construction that both teams would entertain, they would have to figure out, is it the devil or I'm not trying to frame it in those terms, but that's kind of the cliche that I'm coming back to here. I think this is a good point for us to cap it off. We will be putting out some content as we get closer to the draft. I'm going to Brooklyn. Hopefully I get to watch two of these guys get picked, put on some Pelicans hats. Maybe there's going to be some crazy trades. I want to put a bow on it by saying, as of right now, the Pelicans, no one really has a clear idea of what they're going to do in the draft, which is unusual compared to times under Griff, where everyone just kind of knew, like, hey, they were picking Kyra, they're picking Misi, they're picking Dyson, they're picking Hawkins. Everyone knew well ahead of time. Probabilistically, we can see that from process of elimination that, like, hey, there's a good chance, we don't know for sure, that Jeremiah Fears or Kaman Malawach are going to be available at 7, and it might come down to those two on who they pick. But now it feels like maybe Ace Bailey's going to fall to 7. Maybe if he doesn't, maybe Trey Johnson falls to 7, and that's going to certainly complicate the decision-making process. Yeah, exactly. That's certainly going to complicate the decision-making process for them. Maybe, that spurs other teams to try to trade up. So we don't know yet. If we find out more, I'll definitely share it with you guys. But Jay, go ahead and take us home.
As we said at the beginning of this, please like, share, subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend. I hope that we were escaped for all the waves arms wildly that's happened in the world. And love y'all. Appreciate y'all. Y'all be easy.